The sound of my wife giggling at 2 in the morning wasn't what woke me up. It was the silence that followed when she realized I was standing in the kitchen doorway, watching her delete text messages with the urgency of someone disposing of evidence. "Working late again?" I asked, my voice carrying that special brand of sarcasm I'd perfected over 15 years of marriage. Emily's face went pale in the blue glow of her phone screen. "Just coordinating with the team for tomorrow's presentation." Right, because marketing presentations typically involved heart emojis and kissy face selfies. I'd seen enough before she hit delete. "My name is Danny Walsh, and I fix air conditioners for a living. Not glamorous, but honest work that keeps food on the table and pays for my wife's designer coffee habit. At 42, I've got calloused hands, a bad knee from my amateur boxing days, and apparently, a cheating wife who thinks I'm too stupid to notice." The next morning, Emily was already gone when I dragged myself out of bed. Her coffee cup sat in the sink, lipstick stain on the rim like a scarlet letter. On the kitchen counter, she'd left a note. "Dinner with Melissa tonight. Don't wait up. -E Melissa." Emily's college roommate turned best friend turned constant presence in our lives. If Emily was having an affair, Melissa would know about it. Hell, she'd probably helped plan it. I grabbed my work bag and headed out to my truck, a 10-year-old Ford that had seen better decades. The morning air was crisp for October, and the leaves on our maple tree were starting to turn. This house had been our dream once. 2-story colonial in a decent neighborhood, white picket fence, the whole suburban fantasy. Now it felt like a prison where I was serving time for the crime of being ordinary. My first job was at the Henderson place across town. Mrs. Henderson was 80-something and treated her ancient furnace like a family pet. While I worked on replacing the filter, she chattered about her neighbors. "That young couple next door is having problems," she said, settling into a recliner with a cup of tea. "The husband works all the time, never home. Wife's been having gentleman callers during the day." I grunted noncommittally, but my hands tightened on my wrench. Was this what people said about Emily and me? Was I the clueless husband in someone else's gossip session? "Course it's none of my business," Mrs. Henderson continued. "But when a woman starts dressing up for trips to the grocery store, well, you draw your own conclusions." Emily had been dressing differently lately. New clothes, expensive perfume, hair appointments twice a month instead of every 6 weeks. When I'd complimented her new dress last week, she'd said it was for client meetings. Apparently her clients appreciated short skirts and low necklines. I finished the job and headed to my next appointment, but my mind kept circling back to those deleted texts. The way Emily had jumped when I walked into the kitchen, the guilty flush that spread across her cheeks. By lunch, I'd made a decision. Instead of eating my usual gas station sandwich in the truck, I drove to Emily's office building downtown. The Pinnacle Marketing Group occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower that screamed success and ambition. Everything I wasn't. I parked across the street and waited. At 12:30, Emily emerged from the building wearing a red dress I'd never seen before. She wasn't alone. The man with her was tall, dark-haired, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. He had his hand on the small of her back as they walked, guiding her toward a silver BMW parked at the curb. The gesture was intimate, possessive. This wasn't a business lunch. I followed them to Chez Laurent, the kind of restaurant where they don't put prices on the menu because if you have to ask, you can't afford it. Through the window, I watched my wife laugh at something her companion said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. 15 years of marriage. 15 years of working overtime to pay for her college loans, supporting her through 3 job changes, listening to her complain about her boss, her coworkers, her life. And this was how she repaid me. I drove back to work in a fog of rage and humiliation. The afternoon crawled by in a blur of broken thermostats and clogged vents. Every customer who mentioned their spouse made me want to punch something. When I finally got home at 6, Emily's car wasn't in the driveway. The house felt hollow, echoing with the ghosts of better times. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the family photos on the wall. Our wedding day, Emily radiant in white. Our 5th anniversary trip to Napa. Last Christmas, both of us smiling at the camera while our marriage rotted from the inside. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. Running late. Start dinner without me. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the empty kitchen. Start dinner without her? I'd been doing everything without her for months. Instead of cooking, I did something I'd never done before. I went upstairs to our bedroom and started looking through Emily's things. Her dresser drawers revealed nothing unusual, but her jewelry box held a surprise. A pair of diamond earrings I'd never seen before, still in their Tiffany box. My hands shook as I opened our laptop and checked the browser history. Emily had been careful, but not careful enough. Hotel reservations, restaurant bookings, searches for how to tell your husband you want a divorce. The last search hit me like a punch to the gut. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning to leave. I heard her car in the driveway at 11. By then, I was back downstairs, sitting in the dark living room with my third beer. Emily came in through the kitchen, heels clicking on the tile floor. "Danny, are you home?" "In here." She appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the kitchen light. Even in the darkness, I could see she'd been drinking. Her lipstick was gone, and her hair was mussed. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" "Just thinking." She moved closer, and I caught a whiff of men's cologne mixed with her perfume. The smell made my stomach turn. "About what?" I took a long pull from my beer before answering. "About how long you've been lying to me." The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Emily's breathing changed, became shallow and quick. "I don't know what you mean." "Sure you do. The question is whether you're going to keep lying or finally tell me the truth." She turned on the lamp, flooding the room with harsh light. In it, she looked older, worn down by the weight of her secrets. "Danny, who is he?" The question hung in the air between us. Emily's face crumpled, and for a moment I thought she might confess everything. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin. "I think we need to talk. But not tonight. I'm tired, and you've been drinking." "I've had 3 beers. You've been screwing around behind my back. I'd say my judgment is clearer than yours right now." She flinched at the crude language, but didn't deny the accusation. That told me everything I needed to know. "We'll talk tomorrow," she said, heading for the stairs. "When we can be civilized about it." Civilized. As if there was a polite way to discuss adultery. I finished my beer in the dark, listening to her move around upstairs. The shower ran for 20 minutes, washing away the evidence, I supposed. When I finally went to bed, Emily was already asleep, or pretending to be. She'd built a wall of pillows between us, a fabric barrier that might as well have been made of concrete. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling and planning my next move. Emily was gone when I woke up the next morning. No note this time, just the lingering scent of her perfume and an empty coffee cup in the sink. I called in sick to work, first time in 3 years, and spent the morning doing reconnaissance. Her office building had a parking garage with multiple exits. I positioned myself across the street with a clear view of the main entrance and settled in to wait. At 11:45, Emily emerged with the same man from yesterday. Today he was dressed more casually, khakis and a polo shirt that showed off his gym-toned physique. They walked to his BMW, and I followed at a distance as they drove to Riverside Park. I parked behind a cluster of trees and watched them spread a blanket under an oak tree. Emily had packed a picnic lunch, complete with wine and what looked like homemade sandwiches. She'd never made me a picnic in 15 years of marriage. Through my truck's side mirror, I watched them feed each other strawberries and laugh at private jokes. The man, I'd started thinking of him as Mr. Perfect, kept touching her. Her arm, her face, her hair. Each touch was like a knife twist in my gut. When he kissed her, I had to look away. I drove home and spent the afternoon in my garage workshop, taking apart an old carburetor with more force than necessary. Physical work usually calmed me down, but today it only made me angrier. Every bolt I loosened, every part I cleaned, reminded me of the life I'd built with my hands while my wife tore it down with hers. At 5 o'clock, I heard Emily's car in the driveway. I wiped the grease off my hands and went inside to face the music. She was in the kitchen, pulling groceries out of bags with aggressive efficiency. Organic vegetables, expensive cheese, a bottle of wine that probably cost more than our electric bill. We need to talk, I said. I'm making dinner. Emily, look at me. She turned, and I saw my wife clearly for the first time in months. Her face was thinner, sharper. She'd lost weight, probably from all the stress of maintaining a double life. Her eyes held a hardness I'd never seen before. What do you want me to say, Danny? I want you to tell me about him. About who? Even now, she was going to make me drag it out of her. Fine, I'd play along. About Mr. Perfect with the BMW. The one you had lunch with yesterday and a picnic with today? The one who bought you those diamond earrings in your jewelry box? Her face went white. You went through my things? You're cheating on me and you're worried about privacy? She set down the bag of groceries and leaned against the counter. For a moment, I thought I saw regret in her eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like relief. His name is Richard Blackwood. He's a client. Bullshit. He owns 3 restaurants downtown. We've been working on his marketing campaign for 6 months. And somewhere along the way, you decided to work on more than his campaign. She didn't deny it this time. Just stood there, staring at me with those hard eyes. How long? I asked. Does it matter? It matters to me. She sighed, suddenly looking exhausted. 3 months. 3 months. While I was working 60-hour weeks to pay for her gym membership and her yoga classes and her girls' nights out, she was falling in love with another man. Are you leaving me? The question came out more vulnerable than I'd intended. Emily's expression softened slightly. I don't know. I'm confused, Danny. I need time to figure things out. What's to figure out? You're either committed to this marriage, or you're not. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. She turned away from me, busying herself with putting groceries away. Richard makes me feel alive again. When I'm with him, I remember who I used to be before I became just this. This what? A suburban housewife married to a man who comes home covered in other people's dirt. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd always known Emily thought she was better than me, but hearing her say it out loud was devastating. Other people's dirt pays for this house, and your car, and your clothes. I know that, and I'm grateful, but it's not enough. I'm not enough. She turned back to me, tears in her eyes. I didn't mean for this to happen, but it did happen. And now you have to choose. Don't make me choose. Not yet. Why? So you can keep screwing both of us? She slapped me. Hard. The sound echoed in the kitchen like a gunshot. We stared at each other, both breathing hard. The slap had cleared the air somehow, stripped away the pretense and the politeness. Now we were down to the raw truth. I want him out of your life, I said. Today. No more meetings, no more phone calls, no more anything. If you want to save this marriage, it starts with ending whatever this is. And if I don't, then pack your bags and get out of my house. Your house? I've lived here for 8 years. And I've paid for it for 8 years. Your name's not on the deed, sweetheart. I bought this place before we got married, remember? The color drained from her face. She'd forgotten that detail, probably assumed she had some claim to the house after all these years. In California, she might have. But we lived in Texas, where property law was a little more straightforward. You wouldn't. Try me. We stood there in silence, the kitchen suddenly feeling like a courtroom where the verdict was about to be read. I need time, she said finally. How much time? A week. Give me a week to end things properly. End things properly. As if there was a proper way to end an affair. Fine. 1 week. But I want him gone, Emily. Completely gone. And I want you to start acting like you're married to me, not him. She nodded, wiping tears from her cheeks. Okay. But I could see in her eyes that she was lying. She had no intention of ending it with Richard. She was just buying time, probably figuring out how to leave me without losing everything. That night, we slept in the same bed for the first time in weeks, but we might as well have been on different planets. Emily lay with her back to me, crying softly into her pillow. I stared at the ceiling, planning my next move. If she wanted to play games, I'd play, but I'd play to win. The next morning, Emily left early for a breakfast meeting. I waited 30 minutes, then followed her to the Hilton downtown. Through the lobby windows, I watched her meet Richard at the hotel restaurant. They weren't discussing marketing strategies over their eggs, Benedict. I'd seen enough. It was time to get serious about protecting myself. My first stop was Peterson and Associates, the law firm that had handled my house purchase years ago. Jim Peterson was a good old boy who'd grown up in the same neighborhood I had, back when it was blue-collar instead of gentrified. "Danny Walsh," he said, standing up from behind his desk to shake my hand. "Haven't seen you since you bought the house. What brings you by?" "My wife's having an affair. I need to know where I stand legally." Jim's expression sobered. He gestured for me to sit down and pulled out a legal pad. "How long have you been married?" 15 years. "Any kids?" "No." "Property?" "The house is in my name only. Bought it before we got married. We have joint checking and savings accounts, but most of the money in them came from my income." Jim scribbled notes as I talked. "What about her income?" "She makes decent money, but she spends it as fast as she makes it. Clothes, spa treatments, girls' trips. I pay all the household expenses." "Any proof of the affair?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos I'd taken yesterday. Emily and Richard at lunch, at the park, kissing under the oak tree. "This is good," Jim said. "Texas is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can still affect property division and spousal support. With these photos and the fact that the house is yours, you're in a strong position." "What if she tries to claim common law marriage rights or something?" "She can try, but it won't fly. You've been legally married the whole time. The house predates the marriage, and you can prove you've been the primary breadwinner. If you want to file for divorce, I can have papers drawn up by the end of the week." I left Jim's office feeling better than I had in days. Knowledge was power, and now I knew exactly where I stood. My next stop was First National Bank, where I'd had accounts for 20 years. I explained the situation to the branch manager, Mrs. Rodriguez, who'd handled my business since I was a kid. "I'm sorry to hear about your troubles, Danny," she said. "What can I do to help?" "I want to separate our finances, move my direct deposits to a new account that only I can access." "That's certainly your right. We can set up a new checking and savings account today. What about the joint accounts?" "Leave them open for now, but I want to be notified of any large withdrawals." Mrs. Rodriguez nodded and started typing on her computer. "I'll set up alerts for any transaction over $500. Within an hour, I had new accounts and new debit cards. Emily would still have access to our joint money, but she wouldn't be able to clean me out without me knowing about it. My final stop was Murphy's Gym, where I'd been boxing since high school. The owner, Sean Murphy, was a former Golden Gloves champion who'd trained half the cops in town. If anyone could help me prepare for what was coming, it was him. "You look like hell," Sean said when I walked into his office. "Feel worse than I look." I told him about Emily and Richard, about the confrontation the night before, about my visit to the lawyer. "So what do you need from me?" Sean asked. "I need to get back in fighting shape. If this thing goes public, I want to be ready for whatever comes next." Sean studied my face. "You planning on doing something stupid?" "I'm planning on doing something smart. But I want to be prepared in case smart doesn't work." He nodded slowly. "All right. We'll start tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. and Danny?" "Yeah? Don't do anything that'll land you in jail. She's not worth it." I drove home feeling like I had a plan for the first time in weeks. Emily's car was in the driveway, which surprised me. It was only 3 o'clock. I found her in the living room, sitting on the couch with her laptop open. She looked up when I walked in, and I could see she'd been crying. "We need to talk," she said. "I thought we did that yesterday. I mean really talk, about us, about what happens next." I sat down in the chair across from her, keeping some distance between us. Okay, talk. She closed the laptop and folded her hands in her lap. I've been thinking about what you said, about choosing. And I can't give him up, Danny. I'm in love with him. The words hung in the air between us. I'd been expecting them, but they still hurt. So you've made your choice. I guess I have. Then pack your bags and get out. It's not that simple. I need time to find a place, to figure out my finances. You should have thought about that before you started screwing around. Her face hardened. Don't be cruel. Cruel? You want to see cruel? Cruel is finding out your wife has been cheating on you for 3 months. Cruel is watching her feed strawberries to another man in the park where you used to walk together. Cruel is hearing her say she's in love with someone else. Emily started crying again, but I felt no sympathy for her. She'd made her bed, literally and figuratively. I'll give you 2 weeks to find somewhere else to live, I said. After that, I'm changing the locks. 2 weeks isn't enough time. It's more than you deserve. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. What about our friends? What are you going to tell them? The truth. Danny, please. If this gets out, it'll ruin my reputation, my career. You should have thought about that before you started your affair. She stood up abruptly, anger replacing the tears. You're being vindictive. I'm being honest. There's a difference. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. And now you have to live with the consequences. Emily grabbed her laptop and headed for the stairs. I'll stay in the guest room until I find a place. Fine. But Emily? She turned back to look at me. If I catch you bringing him into my house, you'll be out that same day. Are we clear? She nodded and disappeared upstairs. A few minutes later, I heard the shower running, washing away the evidence again, probably. I sat in the living room as the sun set outside, thinking about the life we'd built and how quickly it had all fallen apart. Tomorrow, I'd start the process of rebuilding. But tonight, I was going to let myself grieve for what we'd lost. Even if Emily didn't seem to think it was worth grieving for. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of awkward silences and careful choreography. Emily and I moved around each other like strangers sharing a boarding house, polite but distant. She kept to her word about not bringing Richard to the house, but I knew she was spending most of her free time with him. I threw myself into work and training. 6 a.m. every morning at Murphy's gym, then 10-hour days fixing other people's problems while my own life fell apart. The physical exhaustion helped me sleep, and the routine kept me sane. On Thursday of the second week, I came home to find Emily packing boxes in the living room. She'd found an apartment across town, she told me. She'd be out by the weekend. I'll need to take some of the furniture, she said, not looking at me. Take whatever you want. I never liked that couch anyway. It was a lie. We'd picked out that couch together during our second year of marriage, spent hours in the furniture store debating between leather and fabric. But I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of knowing I cared. Friday evening, Richard showed up with a moving truck. I watched from the kitchen window as he and Emily loaded boxes and furniture. He was bigger than I'd expected, probably 6'2", with the kind of muscles that came from expensive personal trainers rather than honest work. When they were finished, Emily came back inside to return her house key. We stood in the entryway where she'd thrown her purse every day for 8 years. I guess this is it, she said. Guess so. Danny, don't. Just don't. She nodded and handed me the key. Our fingers brushed for a moment, and I felt a flicker of the old connection. Then it was gone. I'll have my lawyer contact yours about the divorce papers, she said. Jim Peterson's handling it. He'll be in touch. She walked toward the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, I am sorry. About how this happened. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. She left without another word. I watched through the window as Richard helped her into his BMW, his hand possessive on her back. Then they were gone, and I was alone in the house that suddenly felt too big and too quiet. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The first sign of trouble came the following Tuesday. I was replacing a furnace filter at the Morrison house when Mrs. Morrison mentioned seeing me at the grocery store the weekend before. "You looked upset," she said. "Everything all right?" I hadn't been to the grocery store that weekend. I'd spent Saturday at the gym and Sunday watching football. But I didn't correct her. Small towns thrived on gossip, and I wasn't about to feed the rumor mill. The second sign came Wednesday evening. My neighbor, Bill Henderson, knocked on my door with a concerned expression. "Hey, Danny, I hate to bring this up, but I heard some things around town about you and Emily." "What kind of things?" Bill shifted uncomfortably. "People are saying you threw her out, that you were abusive." The word hit me like a punch to the gut. Abusive? I don't believe it, of course. I've known you for years. But the story going around is that Emily left because she was afraid of you. I felt the blood drain from my face. Who's spreading this story? I'm not sure. But it's all over town. I thought you should know. After Bill left, I sat in my kitchen trying to process what I'd heard. Emily was rewriting history, painting herself as the victim and me as the villain. It was brilliant, actually. Instead of being the cheating wife, she became the brave woman who escaped an abusive marriage. My phone rang. It was Sean Murphy. "Danny, you need to get down here. Now." "What's wrong?" "Just get down here." I drove to the gym with a sick feeling in my stomach. Sean was waiting for me in the parking lot, his face grim. "3 guys came by today asking questions about you," he said. "Wanted to know if you'd been violent, if you'd ever lost your temper during training." "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That you're one of the most controlled fighters I've ever trained." But Danny, one of them was taking notes. This felt official. My mind raced. Did they show badges? ID? No, but they had that cop smell, you know? The way they carried themselves. I did know. I'd grown up in a neighborhood where you learned to spot cops from a block away. "There's something else," Sean said. "I heard Emily's been telling people you hit her. That she's got photos of bruises, the world tilted sideways. That's impossible. I never laid a hand on her. I know that. But photos can be faked, and people believe what they want to believe." I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning with the implications. Emily wasn't just leaving me. She was destroying me, systematically dismantling my reputation, my relationships, my life. When I got home, there was a message on my answering machine from my biggest client, Henderson HVAC. They were reassessing their contractor relationships and wouldn't need my services anymore. No explanation, but I didn't need one. My phone rang again. This time it was my brother Mike, calling from Phoenix. "Jesus, Danny, what the hell is going on out there?" "What do you mean?" "I got a call from cousin Janet. She heard from someone in town that you beat up Emily. Tell me that's not true." "It's not true. Emily had an affair. I asked her to leave. That's it." "Then why is she telling people you abused her?" "Because she's a lying bitch who wants to make herself look like the victim." Mike was quiet for a moment. "Danny, you need to be careful. These kinds of accusations can ruin your life." "They already are." After Mike hung up, I poured myself a whiskey and sat in my living room, trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so fast. A month ago, I was a happily married man with a successful business and a good reputation. Now, I was a suspected wife-beater whose clients were dropping him and whose friends were asking uncomfortable questions. Emily had played this perfectly. She'd gotten out ahead of the story, controlled the narrative, made herself the hero and me the villain. And there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. Or was there? I picked up my phone and called Jim Peterson. "Jim, it's Danny Walsh. I need to see you first thing tomorrow morning." "What's the urgency?" "Emily's telling people I abused her. I need to know what my options are." Jim was quiet for a long moment. "Danny, accusations like that can destroy you even if they're false. We need to get aggressive about protecting your reputation. What does that mean? It means we stop playing defense and start playing offense. Can you be here at 8 tomorrow morning? I'll be there. I hung up and finished my whiskey, staring out the window at the street where Emily and I used to walk our dog before he died 3 years ago. Everything looked the same, but everything had changed. Emily wanted to play dirty? Fine. Two could play that game, but I was going to play to win. Jim Peterson's office felt different the next morning. Instead of the friendly consultation I'd had before, this felt like a war room. Jim had another lawyer with him, a sharp-eyed woman named Sarah Chen who specialized in defamation cases. Danny, meet Sarah. She's going to help us destroy your wife's credibility. Sarah shook my hand with a firm grip. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning and don't leave out any details. I spent 2 hours walking them through the timeline. Emily's affair, the confrontation, her decision to leave, and now the false accusations. Sarah took notes on a legal pad, occasionally asking pointed questions. Do you have any history of violence? She asked. Any arrests, even minor ones? A bar fight when I was 22. Charges were dropped. Domestic disputes? Calls to the house? Never. Any witnesses to your interactions with Emily during the marriage? Friends, family, neighbors who can testify to your character? I thought about it. Bill Henderson next door, Sean Murphy at the gym, my brother Mike, though he lives in Phoenix now. Sarah nodded. We'll need statements from all of them. What about Emily's affair? Any evidence besides the photos you took? Hotel receipts, restaurant charges on our joint credit card. I can get the records. Good. We're going to build a case that shows Emily is fabricating these abuse allegations to cover up her own infidelity and justify her actions. Jim leaned forward. But Danny, I have to ask. Are you absolutely certain you never put your hands on her? Not even during an argument? The question stung, but I understood why he had to ask. Never. The closest I came was when she slapped me that night in the kitchen. I wanted to hit her back, but I didn't. Any chance she could have bruises from other activities? Her affair partner, maybe? I thought about Richard's hands on Emily at the park, the possessive way he touched her. It's possible. Sarah made another note. We'll need to investigate Richard Blackwood. Find out what kind of man he is, whether he has any history of violence. How do we do that? I know a private investigator, former cop, very discreet. He can dig up everything there is to know about Mr. Blackwood. We spent another hour planning strategy. By the time I left Jim's office, I felt like I had a fighting chance. My first stop was the bank, where I got copies of all our credit card statements for the past 6 months. The evidence was damning. Expensive restaurants, hotels, jewelry stores, all on days when Emily claimed to be working late or out with girlfriends. My second stop was Murphy's gym, where I found Sean training a group of teenagers. I need a favor, I told him after the kids left. Name it. I need you to write a statement about my character. For my lawyer. Sean's expression darkened. This is about those abuse allegations? Yeah, Emily's trying to destroy my reputation. I need people who know me to speak up. Consider it done. I've known you for 15 years, Danny. You're one of the most controlled people I know. If you'd wanted to hurt Emily, you would have done it the night you caught her cheating. That afternoon, I drove to Henderson HVAC to talk to my former client face to face. The owner, Bob Henderson, looked uncomfortable when I walked into his office. Danny, I can't. Just hear me out, Bob. You've known me for 10 years. Have I ever given you reason to think I was violent? Bob shifted in his chair. No, but nothing. My wife had an affair and left me for another man. Now she's spreading lies to make herself look like the victim. Don't let her destroy my business based on gossip. I heard she had photographs. Of what? Bruises that could have come from anywhere? Bob, use your head. If I was abusive, why didn't she ever call the police? Why didn't she ever go to the hospital? Why didn't any of our neighbors ever hear anything? Bob was quiet for a long moment. You make a good point. All I'm asking is that you judge me based on what you know about me, not what some vindictive ex-wife is spreading around town. I'll think about it. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. I'd take it. That evening, I got a call from Sarah Chen. My investigator found some interesting information about Richard Blackwood, she said. What kind of information? He's been married twice before. Both marriages ended badly, and both ex-wives filed restraining orders against him. My pulse quickened. For what? Domestic violence, physical and emotional abuse. The charges were dropped both times. The women were paid to keep quiet, but the pattern is clear. So, Emily might be in danger? It's possible. More importantly for our case, it suggests that any bruises she might have didn't come from you. What's our next move? We're going to file a defamation suit against Emily. Force her to prove her allegations in court. And we're going to make sure everyone in town knows about Richard's history. Won't that put Emily at risk? Sarah was quiet for a moment. Danny, I understand you still care about her, but she's trying to destroy your life. You have to decide what's more important, protecting her or protecting yourself. I thought about Emily feeding strawberries to Richard in the park, about the lies she was spreading, about the clients I was losing and the friends who were starting to doubt me. Protect myself, I said. Good. I'll have papers filed by Friday. After Sarah hung up, I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and thinking about the war Emily had started. She'd fired the first shot with her false accusations, but I was about to fire back with both barrels. My phone rang. It was Bill Henderson from next door. Danny, you need to know something. Emily was here today. At your house? Yeah, she wanted to ask me some questions about you. About whether I'd ever heard fighting or yelling from your place. What did you tell her? The truth. That you and Emily seemed happy. That I never heard any domestic disputes. But Danny, she seemed different. Scared, maybe. Scared of what? I don't know. But she kept looking over her shoulder like she was worried someone was watching her. After Bill hung up, I wondered if Emily was starting to realize what kind of man she'd left me for. Richard Blackwood had a history of violence against women, and Emily was living with him now. Part of me wanted to warn her. Part of me wanted to protect the woman I'd loved for 15 years, even though she'd betrayed me. But a bigger part of me remembered the lies she was telling, the reputation she was destroying, the life she was ruining. Emily had made her choice. Now she'd have to live with the consequences, even if those consequences included Richard Blackwood's fists. 3 days later, Emily was served with defamation papers at her new apartment. According to Sarah Chen's investigator, she broke down crying when she read them. By that afternoon, my phone was ringing off the hook. Danny, what the hell are you doing? It was Melissa, Emily's college friend and constant enabler. I'm protecting myself from false accusations. Emily's not lying. I've seen the bruises. Bruises that came from her new boyfriend, not from me. That's ridiculous. Richard Blackwood has 2 restraining orders from previous wives for domestic violence. Did Emily mention that? The silence on the other end of the line told me everything I needed to know. You're lying, Melissa said finally, but there was doubt in her voice. Check the court records. It's all public information. She hung up without another word. An hour later, Emily called. We need to talk, she said. Her voice was shaky, uncertain. Talk to my lawyer. Danny, please. This is getting out of hand. You started this war, Emily. Don't complain because I'm fighting back. I never meant for it to go this far. What did you think would happen? That you could destroy my reputation and I'd just take it? I was scared. Richard said. She stopped abruptly. Richard said what? Nothing. It doesn't matter. But it did matter. Richard had coached her on what to say, how to play the victim. He'd used her to destroy me, probably because he saw me as a threat to his relationship with her. Emily listened to me carefully. Richard Blackwood is dangerous. He's hurt women before. You don't know what you're talking about. I know he's been married twice before. I know both his ex-wives filed restraining orders against him. I know they both dropped the charges after he paid them off. Another long silence. That's not true, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Ask him about Linda Morrison and Janet Webb. Ask him why they were both hospitalized during their marriages to him. You're just trying to turn me against him. I'm trying to keep you from getting killed. The line went dead. That evening, I was working in my garage when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I saw Richard's BMW. He got out alone, his face dark with anger. I grabbed a wrench from my workbench and walked out to meet him. "You son of a bitch," he said, striding toward me. "You think you can spread lies about me?" "They're not lies. They're court records. Those charges were bullshit. Both those women were crazy. Crazy enough that you had to pay them to keep quiet?" Richard stopped about 10 feet away from me, his hands clenched into fists. He was bigger than me, but I'd been training hard for 3 weeks, and I had 15 years of rage fueling me. "You need to back off," he said. "Drop the lawsuit, stop digging into my past, and leave Emily alone." Or what? Or I'll give you something real to sue about. I laughed, a harsh sound in the quiet evening air. "You threatening me, Richard?" "I'm promising you." "Good. I was hoping you'd do that." I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording app I'd started when I saw his car pull up. "That's assault, legally speaking. Threatening bodily harm. I've got it all recorded." Richard's face went white. "You bastard. Emily might be stupid enough to fall for your act, but I'm not. I know exactly what you are." He took a step toward me, and I raised the wrench. "Go ahead," I said. "Give me an excuse." For a moment, we stood there facing each other like gunfighters in an old Western. Then Richard's survival instincts kicked in. He was a bully and a woman beater, but he wasn't stupid. He knew I had him recorded, knew I was ready for a fight. "This isn't over," he said, backing toward his car. "Yes, it is. And you lost." He drove away, spinning his tires, leaving rubber marks on my driveway. I went inside and immediately called Sarah Chen to report the incident. "Perfect," she said. "This gives us even more ammunition. I'll file a restraining order against him tomorrow." "What about Emily? What about her?" "She's living with him. If he's as dangerous as we think..." "Danny, you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved." I knew she was right, but that didn't make it easier. The next morning brought unexpected news. Sean Murphy called while I was having coffee. "You need to get down to the gym," he said. "Now." "What's wrong?" "Just get down here." I found Sean in his office with a woman I didn't recognize. She was in her 40s with short brown hair and nervous eyes. "Danny, this is Linda Morrison. She has something to tell you." Linda arrives shaken but resolute, warning the narrator that Richard Blackwood, her ex-husband, nearly killed her twice. She details broken ribs, a concussion, and an ICU stay for internal bleeding, then explains why charges vanished. Richard's wealthy family and a menacing lawyer made it clear she might die in a staged accident if she didn't back down. Now he's with someone new, and she's terrified history will repeat. She hands over an envelope of evidence, medical records, police reports, brutal photographs, and asks the narrator to use it to protect his ex-wife, Emily. After absorbing the horror in those files, the narrator calls attorney Sarah Chen. Sarah says this escalates the situation from defamation to potential homicide risk and insists they go to the police. Detective Ray Kowalski reviews the material, acknowledges how disturbing it is, but says he can't arrest based on what might happen. Prior restraining order issues were in other jurisdictions and were dropped. A recorded threat from Richard is, in the detective's view, borderline, angry words a defense lawyer could reframe. He promises extra patrols and to take any complaint from Emily seriously, but it's a limited response. That night, the narrator confronts Emily in her parking lot. He plays Richard's threat and shows one of Linda's photos. Emily denies, then flinches at a gentle reach, revealing fear learned the hard way. She finally breaks and admits Richard hit her once while drunk, then apologized and brought flowers. The narrator urges her to come home where it's safe. Before she answers, Richard appears. Tension spikes. Richard smears Linda as a liar. The narrator cites the ICU. Richard lunges. The narrator drops him with a single punch and warns him to stay away, and that if Emily is hurt again, there will be consequences. Richard, bleeding, promises retaliation. Emily, crying, helps him inside. Driving away, the narrator sees the choice she has made and feels the bleak math of abuse, power, denial, and fear binding victim to abuser. He resolves to keep pushing legal avenues, but he understands the limits of rescue when someone won't or can't leave. In the shadow of Richard's influence and Emily's fragile loyalty, the evidence is a lifeline few institutions will grasp until it's too late. The end, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching, 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 you are watching.